this party started. So I guess I wouldn't know what episode we're on. I guess technically this should be closer to episode 3, although we've done a handful of these, some shorter versions, some longer forms more recently. So it doesn't really matter how many we're on. Just having fun doing it. So, he's talking about Ramble On, and we've been toying with different names for this podcast. Ramble On would actually be a pretty fun one, although I got to imagine there's a podcast out there called Ramble On already.
With guys with long hair. And...
right. Or just guys who just ramble on.
Yeah.
Or girls, for that matter. So I was just telling John that I'm excited. We booked, my wife and I just booked flights to Vegas. I have to be out there for work out in February. So we're going to take the weekend before my convention to go ahead and spend, actually it'll be a couple days after our 23rd anniversary. We'll land out there on Valentine's Day and then spend the weekend enjoying the Vegas area. We're probably going to go to the Grand Canyon. We might even go do the helicopter, because she's never been in a helicopter, and it's a quicker journey, I think, to take the helicopter versus the drive. So I think we might do that.
Historically speaking.
Yeah, I would imagine it would be a little quicker to do that. Although the other thing that might happen, it would be an interesting thing if it happens. All the managers I work with, their wives might be coming too. So
that's cool.
Yeah, we might end up having a night where we all get to go out as couples. So should be fun. You get a lot of different options.
Yeah, we got.
Was that here when you got here? That little slide deal?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. So I think probably today's conversation is going to go wherever it goes. I'm sure we've got some topics to catch up on, but I think more than anything, today's more about trying to figure out what different tools we can use, while we're doing this. So, whether it's Facebook Live or Anchor or both, we're watching a little bomb, 100-foot bomb out in Portugal. That'd be nice. I was thinking, we had a guest last week, which was a great experience. He just sent us another article, a couple more articles this week, and one he wrote, and the other one was about notebooks last night at 1:30 in the morning. But he was a great conversation, and we've known Chris for a long time, and to see some of, or to get an insight into some of his life that I wasn't aware of was a great experience for me. I mean, he's always been one of my favorite people, one of the most interesting people I know, and it was great to sort of get to know him a little bit in a way that we just haven't in the past. So, any takeaways that you have from last week with him?
When you see people, and I mean, Chris is very interesting, very fun, and so, this wouldn't necessarily determine that everybody would be this way, but learning about writing, the type of articles he sent, you don't realize how much of a process writing is. Like, it's just another great example of process over result. Whether it be going out and paddling 500 times in 1 foot waves before these guys surf these waves, whether it be, he was talking about writers and notebooks and how characters change and develop before they ever make it to the final story. The final story isn't really the final story, it's just the last version the person worked on before they released it.
Right.
But the story could go on and the character could change forever. You could write a book, forever, but at some point, you may want a different project or something. So I like, the process-oriented part. I loved how he used curiosity as a kid to become a reader, search after it at a young age, delve into books and learn things for himself, and not just absorb what everybody around him was telling him. He's a great listener and great conversation, but the hours he put in outside of our time together, learning what he wanted to learn about the world, and it leading to a passion of his being Rome, and just to hear his expertise and write about it, you just think of all the hours and moments and process that was involved, and he's still even he loves it, and he's found his passion, because he's even working right now on being a writer, how to connect and create curiosity, or in his articles, just a lot of cool stuff. I got a lot of cool stuff out of it.
Yeah, I mean, probably at different moments this week and beyond, there'll be different parts of the conversation that resonate, right? So the one that's really been resonating, probably the strongest since the conversation, has been just the example that he chose. He could have easily said to himself, "Hey, I know I've got it figured out. I know how I want to write. I don't need to incorporate other things.
I'm getting paid for articles."
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm fine. And the fact that he decided, based off of a conversation with a friend of his, to open himself back up to change, to conflict, to dialogue, whatever that may turn into, that allows for him to grow. I mean, that you just see so much of, especially our age, people as they get older tend to do less of that, right? It's not even so much about an ego thing, although sometimes it is, but it's really just, hey, my life's comfortable. I don't really need distractions and conflict and people challenging me in my life. So to see that he's, in his late 40s, opening himself up to that's a great example. And I think it also, we tell our kids all the time to do that, right? We're like, hey, challenge yourself, challenge the world, do different things. And then for some reason we forget that as we get older, right? We forget the lessons that we're trying to teach them. Like somehow magically life changed as you got older. Things about life change, but sort of the way you can interact with it doesn't have to change if you don't want it to. So you can always be curious your whole life. You can continue to grow as long as you want to.
Yeah,
so.
That hasn't changed for him.
Right.
The one thing when I was putting together the information on, making this Facebook page, and my podcast is called Simplify, and whether it be with a guest, whether it be, whether I'm at Wawa or anywhere, one of my goals is to not see everything as a situation, but to simplify it. Mm-hmm. Is this a situation of compassion? Is this a situation of patience? Is this a situation, something I can be tangible about? Because I'd never be able to be tangible about the details. Mm-hmm. There's just too many moving parts for you to really know whatever is really going on.
Right.
But if you can come down to something you could put your hands on, so, experience it, simplify it, learn, and then apply it in the next moment. I think that's why I like Simplify so much, and so whether it was Chris and curiosity or exploration or putting in the work or developing character, because I have a patience issue and a consistency issue. I'll have it in certain areas in my life, but the areas that I'm frustrated, I don't have the same patience. Like, I know I'm going to work out forever.
Sure.
So I don't have the same frustrations. I mean, I kind of could get frustrated if I don't, but I don't have the frustrations as another area where I'm not being consistent, like maybe with getting the podcast out,
right,
or it being 5 years down the line from now. This is week 2,
right?
And there's so what I could get from Chris's thing is, he's in a 30, he was 3rd grade, whatever he said he was in. So he's in a 40-year process of developing, just putting letters together into words, into sentences, into paragraphs on pieces of paper.
Sure.
For 40 years,
Yeah.
So, and there is a significant difference when you read his stuff, that, that's somebody that's read more than a couple books. Just the way the words, I have to slow myself, because he's a real writer,
right,
and he writes for academia,
right,
and that's a whole different level of writing. This isn't the press,
right,
or something where people are just trying to make sure everybody understands. Like, these are These are it's a piece of art.
Yeah,
to me.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah, well, it's not just a blog or something that somebody's putting together, which
Well, you
has
gotta
its
know
own
your audience,
has its own
right? You gotta
valid,
know
right?
your
Yeah,
audience.
exactly.
He's got to, so.
Yep.
And I mean, I think that's
Level of technicality is huge.
Yeah, and simplicity is good, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Yeah, it's funny how I thought you were actually going to go a different way when you started that, and it made me think of the movie, Glenn Ross, Glengarry, which is a real salesperson's movie. If you're in that realm of sales as your career, you have to watch that movie sometime in your life. And it's the lesson I always take from that is that there's all these salesmen sort of sitting around complaining about what they don't have, what tools they don't have, why they're not successful, why things aren't easy. And there's one character played by Al Pacino who doesn't seem to be living in that world. He's always the top sales guy, and from my perspective, I've actually used that as a tool, as a training tool, because I've asked parts of the different teams that I've had over the years to sort of identify for me why he is the number one salesperson. And where I'm going with this is that it's sort of connected to what we're talking about here, where every moment is an opportunity, right? So the difference between the salespeople sitting in the office complaining about the leads and how things are, the leads are weak and how hard it is to do their job, he doesn't ever really go to the office in the movie, right? He never goes there. He ends up, sitting at a bar. Everybody he runs into is an opportunity, and that's why he's the top guy. And
you're either building from one, learning from one, or closing one.
Right, and it's just being in the moment to realize that it's, for me, it's like I know when I'm really on purpose when I'm not thinking about it and I'm taking. I look in the rearview mirror at the end of the moment or the end of the day or whatever the case may be and realize that I just flowed in the moment and didn't really think about it. It wasn't, overly aware of it. Just really taking the opportunity to mentor a teammate, to engage with a new opportunity, and that isn't just work related. That's everywhere. That's when I picked up the coffee or not. Not to say I'm doing it all the time, but I'm just expressing that there's a difference, and I think that where that conversation we had with Chris sort of, I think, is almost dusted off some of those thoughts again, because you get kind of stale or you forget about things or you get onto other things and other focuses, and you forget how important being on purpose is, being in the moment. You say all these things, these words, simplify or whatever. Mm-hmm. They're important, and I'm not trying to diminish that reality, because they're really just key reminders that this word represents this for me.
They're activators.
Yeah, they are. That's a great word.
I just had my grandmother, a beautiful gold color clock, and above the fireplace, here, there, the other place, and I saw it and I recognize it and I see it as this beautiful piece of art, and mm-hmm. I remember her when I see it. And the cool thing is somehow it got on my dresser in the morning, and I don't know if it was this morning or yesterday morning, it completely changed everything, because what it said to me was, time. You're running out.
Right.
It's short. It doesn't matter. Nothing matters. If you're not going all out crazy, falling on your face, mm-hmm. you're wasting time.
Yep.
So just that clock, mm-hmm. same house, same thing, just in a different place.
Right.
And when I get up, I guess that's when I'm the clearest, and the day hasn't started yet.
Sure. And
it was just an activator. So now that's going to be another activator, and that clock won't move from there until it does.
Right.
And the simplify is an activator, because it gets me as quickly as possible to the next action.
Sure. To
the next growth. Because if I sit there and say, that person was angry, maybe I should be angry. Sure. It's not about that person.
Sure.
It's what didn't I hear her say?
Yeah.
What didn't I hear him say? What need didn't I meet? What everybody is combating their anger with anger. Has anybody loved them yet? Because when people come into the office, you get different scripts you study, different ways to say things, different analogies to connect. And even just the other day, it was like, wait, are you loving people? It's just like, the words are going to be important. That's your homework. But when it's game time, people don't stop in the middle of a play and pull out a sheet and be like, was it 10 yards or 11? Or, you do that homework. And then when you're out there, you activate, you go. So.
And I think that it starts
the more cues you can have, the better. Actually,
well, and I agree, and I think, but it's even one step farther. It all starts with a mindset of wanting to live a life where you want these activators and know how to manage them appropriately. I think there's a lot of people, and we're coming into the time of the year where we all eat a lot of food and celebrate a little too much. That leads to New Year's resolutions that, and I think that a lot of people think about these things, think about, well, I want to do this or change that, but they're not real. The mindset's not right, because they're not really, they just want to talk about what they want to do versus actually do what they want to do. And you and I have had many conversations about, as we jokingly call it, gobble talk, right? It's just talking about nonsense that we know is not going to take place. Whether it's getting together or going on a trip or whatever the case may be, it's just never really going to happen. So trying to minimize that noise from your life.
One of my favorite people, my uncle, guy who did what he did in business, but you sit down with him and he has fishing stories of 500-pound tunas pulling in on a rope, catching them in a raft, and marine, and just story after story. Taught himself, he's in his 70s or 80s, teaching himself classical guitar, getting his scuba thing. And he wakes up, whenever we're together, and he comes out and he's always like, okay, here we go. You know what I mean? Each day. And you could set your watch on it, and that's the way he sees a day.
What's interesting is that I don't, I'm not that personality type. So the idea of that would be a lot of work. So I envisioned him like sitting behind a door, like pumping himself up to be like, okay, I gotta be the guy who walks out and goes, come on guys, here we go. Now, it may not have been him. He may have been effortless in that, and that may have been who he was.
Yes.
But I just envisioned that, he's behind the door almost like, going into a boxing match. Like, today I've got to be on. So when I open the door, it's game time.
And it's amazing how infectious that can be.
Oh, sure.
Because, we'll go a place, and he'll start a conversation, and I, going with him, already know it's going to be a long conversation.
Right.
The person getting in doesn't know it's a long conversation yet. So, but watching the layers come off that person as the conversation continues on, and as he engages, and finding that common topic, and watching that person open up. I mean, I wouldn't say grown men cry, but I've seen grown men talk about their hometown with like some real passion. That started in a fish market picking up some food.
They did not walk in that day thinking that their conversation was going to go
telling stories they'd never told anybody. So it's like, it's always an adventure. Like, we'll leave the house and people are like, oh, who's going to pick up stuff? Who's going this? And if he's ever going, I'm going with him. And I'm always saying to somebody else, you got to come see this. It didn't even happen yet, but you got to come see this. And then, we'll stoke it up wherever we can.
Sure. What can you,
one time we were on a boat and we're driving, and I just start to see him pacing around and he starts to head up, and the person's driving the boat. He's looking in the window, and I'm getting everybody together. Okay, let's watch this. He goes, Captain, I'm impressed. And gives him the whole boat rode down, because the guy's lived on boats and has tons of boats. When he says that, other people just see him complimenting somebody, but I think there's an actual technical aspect from his knowledge level that he's aware of, that he's going to be able to express to that person that really is to be commended.
Well, and I think there's a lot of things in there too, because to your point, some people are seeing it as him just complimenting. You're seeing it in a different way because you've experienced so much with him that that conversation is going to go in a potentially a lot of different ways. And just hearing that story, I actually have a different perspective, which is, perhaps he just needs to engage with people so much, and he may actually have not really appreciated what the captain was doing, but the only way to have a dialogue with him was to open up with a very, hey, I'm impressed, with, and he may be genuine. I'm not,
Yeah.
I'm just giving you a sort of a perspective, an alternative perspective. That is, the people that have the ability to engage others, some of that is they know just how to open up the door where people will be receptive, right? It's not anything that skill is tremendous to be able to just say to yourself, hey, I'm going to be able, if I just say this, and sometimes I don't have to think about it because they're just so good at it. If I just say this, and I've obviously been around a lot of salespeople in my career, so I see a lot of that, and just the way some people can just interact with other people somehow they're talking about something that's completely off topic, and next thing you know, that person's buying something because that conversation built trust in a way that next thing you know, that's not even why they really showed up, but they just said one thing after talking about dogs, weather, travel,
that's why I like pulling that string. You never, like that string. I don't need that string. Why would I need a blue string?
Right.
Because the blue string unlocks something else.
Yeah.
And that's what we were one time. The last story with him is we were at this place watching the Penn State game. The other guy was a Penn State fan. Yells across to my cousin, "Hey, yell out the Penn State scores for me." Because I can't see the TV.
Right.
He starts yelling out the scores. The guy ends up sending over drinks to them. Then they come over to start talking a little bit. My uncle's giving them insurance advice because they're both insurance sales reps for like New York, Pennsylvania, all these different areas. So they're like, oh, okay, they think they're getting this guy's opinion.
Right.
He doesn't really reveal it, but 30 minutes into it, he was the president of Blue Cross Blue Shield in Manhattan.
Right.
So it turned from getting advice and not really wanting to talk about work, or maybe they did, I don't know, to maybe a couple moments of, wow, that's kind of insightful for a guy just who has Medicare.
Yeah.
And then, it turned into phone numbers, you got to call me.
Right. Exactly. It's interesting because even just thinking about those people that were sitting there, sort of reluctant, because to your point,
they were engaging, but you never know. Not to the point that there's a resource here that's kind of. He was sort of giving them his future forecast. But
I think it's just an example too of, and I think we probably do this for survival reasons, like we don't know the unknown or people that we're not comfortable with. We have to. Protect ourselves. Who knows what drives that sort of keep everybody at arm's length at first, mentality. But we always need we need the credentials before we're actually going to listen to these people kind of mentality that exists out there. When so many lessons that we learn over life are from passing conversations, from the mom of some friend who really didn't have any credentials. She just live life and she had experiences and she was just sharing those in whatever way she was sharing those. And she wasn't a professor, she wasn't this, she wasn't that, but that's, if you're not listening to everybody that is around you and at least trying to process it in a way that can help you, is a lost opportunity.
And I always think can be limiting because whatever you've learned to become an expert already puts you in a box.
Right.
Because you can have a new thought at the end of it based off a foundation of knowledge, but no foundation of knowledge is 100% accurate.
Right.
So you're already limiting yourself sometimes. Obviously, they'll think of things and create things because of the energy, time, focus, purpose, and passion that they put into it. But somebody who knows very little about it can say something so profound. That's why even, cross-professioning stuff, like what is a limitation in one profession, another profession would be like, no, you just be nice to people.
Sure.
And they're like, oh, okay. And now everybody is getting surveys at home on how the hospital can be kinder to you or treat you better.
Sure.
You can take that from a car dealership.
Right.
We want you to leave here with 5 stars.
Right.
So it's before it was we save you, deal with it, wait 3 months to come see us.
Sure.
Now, so things, sometimes a different perspective or not being influenced is not a bad thing.
I'm trying to imagine what somebody, if anybody, on the other end of this watching is.
Nobody.
Yeah,
So
which is fine.
So go ahead.
It doesn't really matter. We were going to have this conversation either way.
Let it fly.
So,
Don't mention names. No, I'm kidding.
the we do have these. This I was going to say that part of this is that this is the way we talk, and I think that if you're listening, you're probably saying, what is the point of this conversation? Because we're sort of all over the place, but.
Whatever you get out of it.
Yeah, that's definitely always been our sort of driving force for sure.
Or whatever you switch to.
Or what
after you turn this off.
But I think sometimes too in our conversations, there are plenty of times when we know going in, hey, this is what we're going to talk about, but I think there's a lot of times that we end up having conversations that it's not until almost the second or third or fourth topic we're like, oh, this is why we're talking
pulling
today.
Strings.
Yeah, we're because we don't get to talk every day. We text a little bit, frequently during the week. You don't get to the
third topic without the two conversations.
Right, exactly. It's almost like just getting yourself, and sometimes it's like the notebook
or
idea
that, right?
From
you
Chris.
Don't go into the gym and put your heaviest weight on.
What do we start talking about? Talk about Chris with the characters in the book.
Yeah,
and just you're building the character, and
or you have a blank page.
Or you have a blank page, yeah, and you got nothing.
Yeah,
and so
a character that gets developed is equally as valuable as the end character, and is exponentially more powerful than a blank page.
Yeah, and that's exactly. I mean, there'll be definitely times when we have conversations moving forward. We've got specific topics and questions, and this is what we want to talk about because of whatever's going on in our lives or in the world. Today was much more okay. Let's just talk and figure out how this technology works and how can we put everything together. And we know based off of history of our conversations, whether it's stretching before we go out surfing, or by the time we're done, the conversation we had in between waves and so forth and so on, we walked out of there not knowing what the conversation was going to be like specifically a lot of times, and we walked out with some sort of, today I'm going to do this differently. Tomorrow I'm going to do that differently.
How many things that take minutes, hours, days, or even years come down to one thing, right? Mm-hmm. When you leave a golf course, it's how many swings are you remember when you walk away? One or two that was better than all the others. You come back for the one.
You come back because of the one.
How about surfing? Mm-hmm. Getting in and out of the wetsuit, the cold, the this, the that. Mm-hmm. It's the wave. It's the one wave.
It's the one wave.
It's the whatever. Like no matter how much work or time you put in, if you can expect, or not even expect, if you're fortunate enough to have one great thing come out of 30 years worth of work, I like those little perspective shifts because it takes the pressure off and allows you to really engage, knowing that you can ask yourself a question and maybe cut through some of the gobble. Would 30 years of this be okay if one great thing came out of it?
Right.
And sometimes I say to myself, how much suffering am I willing to do to help somebody?
Right.
Because I want to get to the bottom line.
Sure.
Because if I'm not willing to suffer, then don't say you're going to help a lot of people.
Right.
Or whatever the scenario is. So sometimes I like those simplified, boiled down things. It's like, how inconvenienced are you willing to be to make somebody a little happier?
Right.
And just things like that. So I think if you could be happy with the work you're doing, knowing that there's a chance that you may change somebody's life in 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, is that enough for you? If it is, you're going to be incredibly successful and happy.
Yeah. And it goes back to other conversations we've had where it's really not overly focused on the results. It's really focusing on the process and understand that the process is a process and that you have to just let it mature. I've had conversations with my kids about, they think it's funny that we do this, right?
Yeah.
They're young adults, and for them it's kind of funny to think, because in their mind, most people doing this type of stuff are either already our age and have built this to something like the Joe Rogans of the world, or are very young and they're
But
doing...
the only word I heard you say, and the only word I need? Doing and doing.
Yeah, no doubt. And
no, keep rolling.
And that's exactly what
doing was like. Bring,
well, and that's exactly
like,
what.
I'm happy.
Exactly, and that's why that's almost the example that I really just want to set for them, because I had a conversation with one of them.
That's at the end of it.
And to your point, we don't know where this is going to go, but I do know that sooner than later, I won't be doing what I'm doing today regularly.
Yeah.
So this is just a part of the really building towards the next stage, whatever that looks like.
We're just training to shape you.
Exactly.
I mean, where this could be therapy,
right,
whatever
right,
it is.
exactly.
It's gonna come out that you're gonna get your thoughts out. You're gonna think the same or differently than you had the moment before, and you're gonna be a different person at the end of it.
Yep.
And if you're gonna work on you, it's not a bad gig.
It's funny because I've had to go back to the doing. I've had a couple conversations with some family members and other people who are, colleagues, work colleagues, and when I tell them that we do this, the look on their face is like, what? Why would
People could be on the phone for 2 hours gossiping about other people, and
that could be a podcast.
I'm sure I could be too. I don't want to make this about other people. I want to make this, and I don't want to make it about myself. But that's what I'm working on right now.
Sure. Yeah, real quick, I wanted to. We were talking about surfing, and I had a realization the other day. So I have one wetsuit that has to be replaced. It's my 3.2 is no longer really. It's all breaking. Yeah, it's breaking up at the top, and my 4.3 just had a little bit of a tear that I think I can repair. Otherwise, I got to buy 2 wetsuits. But I was telling my wife, I'm like, well. If the kids get me something, then maybe a wetsuit would be a good idea. And I said, but that's kind of risky because, wetsuits come in all different, depending on the brand, different fits and things like that. I said, but I did have a realization that I'm not changing sizes. And she's like, well, why not? I said, because if I need a bigger size, then I don't need to be out there. If I need
You're
to
not
go,
out there enough.
Right, exactly. I'm not in any condition to be out there. Right, that's a dangerous place to be. If I need a bigger wetsuit, because I'm not giving myself the best opportunity to even catch a wave, then what am I doing? Right, so that was a fun little. Sort of, I love those little definitive moments where you can kind of just put a period on something and say, because it's just been sort of this nebulous, well, what should I do?
Well, you turned it in from getting a wetsuit to changing everything.
Right.
Why not?
Exactly. Because now it's very clear to me, either I'm going to be in shape to go out there or I'm not. And if I'm not, then I don't go out there.
And why not have the best work day possible so out there's more fun?
Right.
Like just,
and I don't know, and the other
goes everywhere.
But here, for me, it was even more about, I don't even have to think about it anymore. Either I'm able to go out or I'm not. And if I'm in shape enough to fit into the wetsuits that I need to get out there, then I'm going to have a good experience. If I'm not, then I'm not going to go out there. Not to say that the spring I won't be as good a shape as water shape anyway as I will in the fall. That's just normal every single season because you just aren't in the water for 3 months and you just kind of have to get yourself acclimated again. Although you get around that by getting in the pool on a regular basis, but
you don't paddle for your life in the pool.
yeah, that's true. But it's pretty quickly, as long as you go out there in enough shape that you're just trying to get yourself acclimated. That's all you need to do, from the breathing and so forth.
And it's fun because we watch some of those David Goggins, and it is so interesting, either the conversations you have with yourself that you don't have when you're not under that kind of duress or stress. It's he talks about how all growth happens and uncomfortable, and he's willing to take it to some amazing levels.
Yeah.
But you really you can't have those conversations with yourself any other way. Like, you're not walking around all day thinking, well, I better stop.
Sure.
I don't have anything left in the tank.
Sure.
So. And the other day he was talking about how listening to music when you exercise is cheating.
Yeah.
Because when you get punched in the mouth and the headphones fly off, there's no more music. Now what are you going to do?
Right.
But I'm just saying, when you're out there, it's so amazing. The talk you can have with yourself. On those days where it's like 3 pier lengths out.
Yep.
Duck dive after duck dive, you come back up, you feel yourself backsliding, you look over. Didn't make much ground and more's coming, and you can't downshift because downshift just means longer in it.
Yep.
And you obviously do things you didn't know you're capable of doing or haven't done all year long. But at the same time, I just can even hear it in my head. I love those moments because it just compresses everything and boils all the fat off. And I love just hearing in my head, come on, keep going. You could do
Right.
this. You got to
Right.
keep going. You
Yep.
can't stop. You cannot stop.
Yep.
If you stop, you're going in. You can't stop. And I love saying it to myself. I love that I make it out. And I love those moments that you can't truly have that kind of truthful conversation to yourself where you're your own coach and encouragement. But, you know, you're also your own, not trophy, but, you know, you're your own satisfaction in that moment. You know,
Well,
like,
it's interesting too because and I know that this has definitely happened over the years we've been going out on a regular basis, last 3 or 4 years, and that is that what that satisfaction is or what you're getting satisfaction from has changed for me. When we first were going out, you know, if I didn't have what I would consider catch a couple good waves, then it wasn't a good experience. Some of my best experiences over the last several years have been just getting out, realizing, oh, it's kind of, you know, dangerous out here because the way the waves are breaking, it's all closing out. Waves are really big. If I don't catch something right, I'm probably going to be in trouble. It's not really worth it. I'm just going to paddle out, you know, and just get an exercise out of this whole thing. If I don't catch a wave, I'm fine with it. Or I'm not going to catch a wave unless I completely know, hey, this one's not going to close out. I'm going to wait specifically for the one that I feel the most comfortable taking. Not to say that there shouldn't be times and places where you take some risks, but there have been days, as you and I both know, that it's like, this is kind of sketchy out here. You know, we really got to be careful because, you know, you end up a mile and a half down the beach anyway because the way that the current's ripping. And then, you know, if you just don't catch the right wave in the right space, if you mess up, it's dangerous. So there are days like that, and I'd much rather be able to get out of the water, have a great workout, know that I made it all the way out, was smart as I was doing that, and got everything I needed out of that.
Yeah.
And I didn't even catch a wave.
I mean, that's why I'm so attracted to process, because all surfing is for me is another color of paint.
Mm-hmm.
All exercises for me is another color of paint.
Yep.
All interaction for me is another color of paint. Driving on the road, you know, it's all just a process of trying to, I don't know, just work on things, and not in some stressful way. Is like in an enjoyment way. It's that's fun for me. Like the process of the experience I have mentally, physically, and spiritually surfing, you know, has me going surfing, but it doesn't matter to me if it's a bike ride.
Right.
It doesn't matter to me what it is. I don't have any, you know, I guess you do have things that you do more regularly, and, you know, that changes, but it's almost like some flow state. Like yesterday was swimming and coffee.
Right.
And that combination, you know, was just cleaning the house and
Sure.
keep moving.
Yeah.
And it was just a 6 hour fat burning experience.
Right.
You know, doing push-ups, doing lunges, doing the vacuum, getting, you know,
Yep.
whatever I was doing, I was making a workout, core engaged the whole time. And it was a 6 hour workout, and the house was clean at the end of it. So that's just that moment to moment interaction. And I feel that those interactions matter. You know, how could vacuuming matter? Because if I'm present and doing it with excellence, not only will that carry into other things as far as a 1-to-1 ratio goes, like my effort versus the kind of person I am, but I also feel on the higher level, you know, with obedience and discipline and taking care of what you're given, I'm tapping in to the power that makes it all go. So that's why picking up a piece of paper, because my mind told me to in the woods, is just as important as anything else, because it's all going into doing what you're supposed to be doing when you're supposed to be doing it.
Well, I also think that going to your simplification, you know, perspective, if you're vacuuming or doing something around the house, why not do it in a way that not only can be beneficial, but you're enjoying it in as much as you can enjoy that experience, whatever that is. Otherwise, if you're going, oh, here's a chore, I got to do this, it's just, you know, and we've all done it. We've all had those days where you just, oh, I got to do this today, and I got to do this today, and it's just, everything is laborious and just, overwhelming sometimes, because you look at the list going, I got to do these 10 things versus I still got to do these 10 things, but how do I make each one of them enjoyable, beneficial, and have a good experience through the whole thing?
I don't want to get to the point that I think I'm the one making all the plates spin.
Right.
I'm just the one assisting the plates.
Right.
When I'm told to assist the plate. And it just relieves you. I mean, imagine thinking that everything that has to happen is dependent on your effort and intelligence, and it just would be whatever the case is to that level. We're definitely supposed to use our gifts and talents, but to feel responsible for those things, some people may like the way that burden feels. I like the freedom of knowing I just got to do what I'm supposed to do.
So, when where did the 100 push-up a day challenge come from? What inspired that?
Oh, somebody was online. They said I'm doing 100 push-ups a day.
Okay.
And I said I'll see you in 30 days. And then
who was it? Somebody
I haven't seen in like 30 years.
Oh, okay.
I used to park cars with them in Atlantic
City.
Oh,
okay. Okay.
They just happened to text the wrong dude.
I assume. Yeah, I noticed. I didn't recognize the number. The one number on.
That's Jason. He's in Florida.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But
I like the consistency of it, because I throw day challenges out to people.
Right.
But I need that 30-day thing in my life. Because that's one of the areas I'm working on. The patience, the consistency. I know about it with health, but I just gotta filter it in other areas.
I assumed when it came out, I was like, I knew Goggins was on Rogan, and I was assuming that's where that came from.
No, that's why I'm thinking about right now jumping in the ocean.
Okay. It's 48 degrees right now, so the ocean temp. Yeah. I don't have a wetsuit, but
that's the point.
Yeah, I know that's your point. I'm trying to justify why it's not going to be the point. But I love.
Is it safe?
It was funny, but here.
Do it.
You can do it. You can do the polar bears.
Okay,
we're
gonna do it.
Yeah, that's fine.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. we're about to freeze because it's outside outside temp right now is like 34. So it'll be chilly on the outbound.
Yeah.
Just as much on the inbound. Actually, it'll be warmer in the water than it'll be out. So
it'll only be a couple seconds.
Yeah.
Change your life though.
I have never done it. I've definitely wanted to do it. It's always been something I've wanted to do, is one of those polar bear plunge deals. So, whatever. And I felt great when I was getting out of the car to get the coffee, and the crispness of the air just felt so good. Just the breathing, it just felt amazing. So, I love my favorite time to do workouts outside, especially running or long hikes, is when it's nice and cold out.
Oh yeah, it's like first you're like, did I bring enough clothes?
Right.
And then you like heat right into it, and then you're like, zoop.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah, you go from do I have enough to wow, I brought too much.
Yeah.
The reason why I thought it was Goggins too is obviously some of the stories and things that he's done, but I think the push-up thing became a no-brainer for me because it wasn't pull-ups.
Yeah.
Because when I heard
with
the story,
chain around your neck.
Yeah, like the stuff that he's done.
67,000 pull-ups to be able to break the record and perform 4,000 or whatever that ratio was. But that's the kind of stuff. So what you see and marvel at is nowhere near of the preparation that it took to perform it.
And goes
they just
back
see
to
the broken record.
But it also goes back to the consistency thing too, right? That you were talking about for you, is the things that you're not frustrated with are the things you're most consistent with, and I would say that's a weakness for me, because I like a lot of variables in my life. I like every day to be different, which is why I think I like generally what I do, because it is different every single day. Where I'm at's different every day. What I have to do that day is different every day. I love that I have no idea when week over week, and when I have to interview people, they're like, tell me what a typical week's like, and I'm like, there's no way to describe that, because I can tell you what you have to do over the course of a week or even a course of a month, but how that ultimately manifests in the week is different for every person, depending on what your role is in the organization and so forth. But so for me, I need a little bit more of that sort of consistency in my life. And
you only want a little of it. I mean, even though it's such a key component, you don't need much of it. You just need it in the areas that feed you.
Right.
and then you want complete randomness because that's where the ride is.
Yeah, because the
The
times
consistency is for sure.
yeah, the times that I look back in my life where I feel like I'm the most productive, or at least the most positive, and which probably is connected, is when I have that sort of consistency and mindset consistency of a lot of times that does involve meditation, exercise, things like that that are in my life that have some level of consistency. That when those go away, and okay, the only consistent thing is I gotta wake up every day and go to work and wake up every day and be with the family, which is good, but they're all random. But what I have to do with them and what that day looks like with engaging with work and the family is different. So that part of it's almost too challenging to treat consistency because of how our life is. We don't have a lot of consistency in our house because we just never build it that way. We let the kids do what they do, and now the two of them have driver's license. Yesterday, here's the car. We didn't need both cars, so we let Cameron take the car to school. Then she went to work. She had the car all day. So
and there is some level where focus already creates consistency because your kids are still very responsible with their time.
Mm-hmm.
Which is awesome.
It's it's funny because it's like a word like consistency. If we were to poll 100 people, probably have varying definitions or interpretations of what that word means, right? And only simply, even though we all know what it technically means from a definition perspective, how that's applicable to each one of us is different. So I don't see my life as consistent, but you make a great point that there's probably more consistency in my life and in their lives than I even really recognize because of some disciplines that they have, disciplines that we have, that
Yeah, they're making things happen.
Yeah, so it's probably a little bit more than I expect, but it's not in that sort of typical, hey, my day is like this every day consistency, which is what some people have. Every day they go to an office. Every day they do whatever that is that they do. Their weekends look like this. And there's consistency in that. There's nothing wrong with that consistency. I'm not saying having all the variables that I have is a good thing versus consistency. It's just a lifestyle difference. Not a better or worse scenario. So, but I definitely, and one of the reasons why I've said to you a few weeks ago, or maybe it's a month or so ago, that I like the idea of us having these conversations and having it recorded, is because you and I, as much as we have known each other and been in each other's lives for so long, we're very different, right? And we have different belief structures, we have different foundations, we have different ways that we look at the world. Our home lives are different, our interactions with our extended families are different. Almost everything about our lives, when you pick up a topic, is different. There's very little that's actually similar.
Except that we're going to be cold in about 45 minutes.
And that's fine too.
Getting you psyched up.
Oh yeah, he's the man.
Maybe we should do the breathing first. I don't know if that makes it any warmer.
Yeah, we'll have to make sure we got some heavy towels. That's good, man. Let's do it. I'm all for it. What's he going into? Frozen water there? He's going into some ice? Yeah.
Just so we know it's possible.
Yeah. There's no doubt it's possible. It's just a matter of, again, it's a mindset thing, man. It's just flipping the switch. How many times have you and this is maybe a negative example, but I like it. I like a beer or a glass of wine or whatever, but I don't like to do shots of alcohol. Like that to me is not an experience I like to have. Yeah. But I also don't have any problems doing a shot if I just go chink. All right, we're doing it. Let's do it. Yeah. Boom. Yeah. And 95% of the time I don't ever want to do shots. But if I flip the switch and say, okay, this is, and unfortunately there's one experience at work that I have consistently because of the people that they are. Every time I'm with them, I'm like, okay, this is going to be one of those nights because that's how they live. And if I'm going to be with them, I try to limit that. But when I'm with them, it's like, okay, this is going to be, I better be game on because this is, or just don't go. I can't go if I'm not in the right mindset, so, because they're all about shots, man. And it's just, if I'm not in that right mindset, I cannot be with them. So, Anyway, but it's just a mindset thing. Going out there is just, it's going to be fun. And didn't wake up today thinking I was jumping in the ocean.
No.
With
That's
some
just-
with board shorts on top of that, with not any not a wetsuit. I mean, it'd be different if you and I were going surfing and we were putting a wetsuit on, but we've done that plenty of times. This is different.
Let's see. I guess that wrap it up.
Whatever you want to do, man. We've got plenty of topics to always discuss, but it's always great to get together and talk and catch up. We probably do this, at least catch up once a week and keep in touch during the week. Any big things that's been new or different for you this week? Anything that's been different from a consistency standpoint that you added, layered in, took out?
I think this week, I guess the dominant theme was my wife. Just to, look at her in a way and experience her in a way to realize how special she is and how special the relationship is, and how the relationship can expose things about me and how I can love her better. We were in New York, and I just looked at her and I just asked God, just show me how to love my wife more. And then when I got home, and the next time I opened the Bible, it opened up to Song of Songs, mm-hmm. which is like this whole love letter to his wife. Mm-hmm. And he was explaining it like he was describing her in nature. Like these things are like doves, these things are like fawns. Mm-hmm. This is like a pomegranate. And the realization I came to after that is he loved her so much that he saw her in everything he saw mm-hmm. in the world, and he just loved so much that he saw all beautiful things about life in her. Right. So that was sort of my focus of the week.
It's interesting because I think that you go through these experiences with people in your life that you care about, and sometimes we think, and especially with spouses, that's you see it every day. It's a daily thing. With other people in your life, it may not be as frequent, but with your kids, it's never a doubt, right? It's so ingrained in your DNA that you don't really even question how much you care about them. But your spouse, it's different because there's just challenges with being together with somebody, yeah. Because you're different people.
Do you think it's because your kids need you?
No, I think it's just hardwired into your protector. These are part of you. Your spouse isn't part of your DNA. Yeah, isn't part of you. They're an extension of you. They're a collaborator. They're your partner. All the different words you hear, and also because of that, they have different ideas and different agendas and different and that doesn't always match up with what you're doing or what you believe in sometimes. And but I think that what I was really took away from what you just said is how many times that we're going, actually yesterday was 23 years of being, we got engaged 23 years ago. Awesome. Yesterday, Pearl Harbor Day. But
you got 23 going for you.
Yeah, there's 22. I knew that you'd appreciate that. But there's how many times I've fallen in love with her in that 23 years, right? It wasn't just 23 years ago. It was, other times along the way where it's like, wow, life gets in the way, situations, you fall apart as far as the structure of your relationship. You have to rebuild it, the stages of you as an individual. I mean, think about the person that I was 23 years ago versus today, who you were, because you and Jen have been together the same amount of time, mm-hmm. right? So the fact that how many different iterations of you have there been and her have there been. And that requires sort of this constant, like, ebb and flow situation.
And if you think of definition of love, like, they say that anybody can love a neighbor, but, it's harder to love an enemy. And I think it's interesting based on how you define it. Like, you think to yourself, if you define love as like, I don't know, there's a number of different ways to define it, but I guess the one thought I was having is, if your ability to sacrifice yourself and serve somebody else and help them reach their dreams more and more, that's really more and more love. Mm-hmm. But in the beginning, I don't know about everybody, but Jen was obviously better at this than I was. You're more of yourself, and then you start to be more for the other person. Mm-hmm. So even though in the beginning you may be doing more things that look like love, flowers or candy or whatever you would do to court or different things, or all the places maybe you used to go together when you don't have kids, whatever time allows. And there's some people that are really great at that. It's awesome to see young love in an old relationship, with dating and all that stuff. And I just think that sometimes you could be loving somebody more, but it may not look like love. And I think that may be where a lot of relationships get difficult, because when more and more sacrifice is required for the other person for the love to grow, people become resistant and try to keep what's theirs. Mm-hmm. And then they're like, we can't get along.
Right.
Versus, what are you willing to give up? And then that is love.
Yeah.
I mean, so it actually either grows or dies, right?
Right. And you because when you were talking about how, people start to do things for the partner, their spouse, whoever it is, and sometimes the danger there is so that person gets lost. They lose themselves, right, in the relationship, and they lost who they were. And I think there's always an important balance there to be able to say how close or how much are you in touch with yourself, as well as how much are you contributing to this partnership. And a lot of times when you see the challenges, or I know when I look back at our challenges and the challenges we'll have in the future, will be when that balance is off, right? Mm-hmm. I'm too into my own stuff. She's too over, and that's generally what it is. She's too much into losing herself, and I'm too much into myself, right? Those are the two general ways that we have challenges. When I'm more into the us and she's gives herself more time, that's the balance that we also always need to work towards. Mm-hmm. She's just overly commits her time to the kids and to me in a way that she loses herself. And she, as a matter of fact, the other day I said to her, we were watching something, and when I met her, she was a flight attendant traveling all the time. And so now that I travel and she doesn't, we joke about how, well, sometimes we don't joke, she's not very happy with that. That's the dynamic that we have. And we've tried to now incorporate travel more now that the kid's older, that she comes with me for work, or, we go before or after a work trip to different areas. But I even said to her, we were watching some sort of adventure show, and I said, if you ever really, once the kids are really out of high school, if you wanted to go on a trip for 6 months and travel the world, and just, we'd obviously have to figure out how to pay for it. But if we could do that, I wouldn't have a problem with you going off and, traveling the world. If I can catch up with you at some point in between, maybe 2 months in, and hang out for a week and then go back and then, catch up later. Maybe that's what we do. But, I think that you have to be willing to explore those types of opportunities and options, right? Because whether she took advantage of that or not, I don't know. But I think we have to think about how to be selfless and understand what that person's needs. Like, she needs that type of experience, at least to let go, or some sort of, not that exact experience, but an experience like that, because she is so selfless and she does give so much to everybody else, and she doesn't give enough for herself and enough time to herself. So sometimes I think that I don't think I did this on purpose, but I have done this where I purposely just almost push her to say, do this extreme. even though I know she's probably not going to do that, but she might land somewhere a little shy of that, or at least just off of where she is today. Only simply because I can see her just overly. If she's frustrated, I can see her frustrated, but she doesn't know how to get out of helping the kids, helping me, doing things with work, with just day to day, and can't get herself out of it. And it's not for lack of desire. It's just sometimes she just needs a little bit of a encouragement